Hey everyone, this is the Mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today. I wanted to quickly share my thoughts about Martell's recent arrest, which happened right after his 42nd birthday, as well as the Love and Marriage Huntsville Season 6 reunion Part 1 and 2. As you guys know, I have not watched or reviewed the show for several weeks because I felt like I had nothing left to add to the public discourse. And if I said something that people did not agree with, it turned into a pointless, heated debate, which, as you guys know, I don't mind getting involved in if the conversation is constructive and not just people wanting to defend a position based on emotions and not facts. So for the reunion, I did not like any of the fashions. I thought they were a bit too garish and uncoordinated. I did not like Melody's outfit. Her hair was too big. The boots were too big. The gown that she was wearing was too big. For her, less is more. It looked like she got swallowed up by the costume. And it also looked like she and Tisha were wearing the same wig, but styled differently. Kimmy's dress was cute. I liked the color, the fit. It was okay. Martell's suit was nice, but too tight, and the fabric was awful. I didn't know that a tuxedo blazer was supposed to fit like Spanx. And I also thought that Martell had his own tuxedo line, blazer line coming out. That is a good business for him to get into. He'd be a great model for his own line of tuxedos if he had discipline and the business acumen that Melody does. I liked Stormi and her husband Courtney's color coordination, but I did not like the way the gown fit on her. And the fabric on Courtney's tux looked too flimsy for his big frame. I think Kimmy looked the best as far as the gowns and stuff, and as far as the coloring and the fitting of the body and the styling of it. Good color, good style, good cut. Tisha, I don't know. It was giving kind of like escapades. I wasn't too fond of the color. I think it would be cool if the cast had like this competition where members of the audience can submit ideas for gowns for the reunion or tuxedos for the reunion. I would definitely participate in that. I would definitely submit some ideas because it's been a struggle for a little while with these reunions. But anyway, I watched parts 1 and part 2, and for me, the most jarring moments out of both episodes was when Melody talked about Martell and Arionne pretty much living together at this point, which should not be a surprise to anybody. I predicted this 2 years ago. Martell needed to find a place to stay at the last minute, and he never had any intention on watching his 5 kids as a single father. Like most men, Martell is using Arionne to play stepmommy so that he does not have to deal with the responsibility of cooking and cleaning and doing the hair for 5 children alone, the way that Melody has to when she has the kids. We all know and we knew that Martell was never the dominant parent when he was married to Melody, so he damn sure was not going to take care of 5 children by himself. And as much as Martell may try to cast aspersions on Melody about her parenting and her loyalty and her character and her love for her children, Melody does not have Martell's enemy playing sleepover with their children. When the children are with her, they're in the company of Melody's mother, brothers, maybe a nanny or babysitter, but not a vile woman who brags about helping to destroy their family. Martell has Mercury in Capricorn, and in a couple of years, Saturn will square his Mercury and his Sun, and unfortunately, something will happen with his children, not to them per se, but with them, that will force him to finally understand the impact of what he's done to his family. He will shift from feeling angry about what he's lost and how this divorce has affected him to understanding how his actions have affected Melody and his children. The Saturn and Aries transit will also change his relationship with Arionne. And if their relationship is still on a shaky foundation, more than likely it will not last. But it hurt my heart to hear Melody talk about how hard it is for her to have her enemy around her children. And Martell knows how terrible this looks. He doesn't really care about the reality of what's happened. He just knows that it makes him look awful in public. This is why he tried to overtalk Melody, calling her a liar, storming off the stage, just like he did at the end of season 2 when he accused her of cheating on him and being on the phone with other men. But even after all the evidence of him actually living with Arionne and spending time with her, he refuses to acknowledge her publicly. Huntsville is a mid-sized city with small-town Southern values and culture. It is not like New York or Los Angeles or Atlanta where social deviants can slither away from their scarlet letter. And Martell knows this. So while he's living foul, he is still trying his hardest to preserve the little shred of integrity or dignity and respect that he thinks the public has for him by pretending as if he's not living with the woman who viciously attacked the mother of his children. He told the world that Melody was a bad mother, yet here he is allowing his broke mistress to watch the children whose mother she hates. And now I'm not saying that Arionne mistreats the children, but I wouldn't be surprised if this honeymoon phase of them living together wears off and the magnitude of responsibility of taking care of 5 children hits both of them, especially if Martell gets fired or demoted from the show and Arionne, after 6, 8 months or to a year, realizes that she's taking care of 4 children who are not her own for a man who hasn't even committed to her yet, formally. So there could be a multitude of reasons why Martell has not claimed Arionne publicly. Either he's embarrassed of her, he's seeing other women, he doesn't want her to get famous, or he's intentionally denying her the only thing that she wants, which is public acknowledgement. And he's doing this so that she can continue to submit to him and he can breadcrumb her until he meets her replacement. A lot of these men will breadcrumb and drag women to the white meat for years because they know that all these women want for Christmas is a wedding ring. Women like Arionne and other pick-me's don't really care about the man per se or how he treats her. The only thing she cares about is the social status of being a wife. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be married, but there is something wrong with wanting to be married to a narcissistic bully. So Martell does not have much left to offer Arionne. He cannot bankroll her lifestyle with Melody's money anymore, and he can't use Melody's energy to triangulate. So the best that he can do is deny Arionne what she wants so that he can continue to string her along. And she's less likely to call out his poor behavior or hold him accountable for his poor behavior because she still wants that ring. She does not want him to think that she's problematic. She's not submissive enough. She's too ornery. She's too aggressive, or she's too independent. And if she does try to call him out, what he'll say is, see, this is why I left Melody, even though she left him. This is why I left Melody, because of her mouth, A, B, C, D, E. And so that will shut her up and make her submit to him. So he's playing all these mind games to convince Arionne to stay in an abusive one-sided relationship. All he can do is give her false hope to maintain control over her. Most women would not tolerate their ex-husband's mistress being around her children, playing house with her ex-husband. But Melody has been extremely gracious towards Arionne and Martell, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's uncomfortable with the fact that these people are celebrating holidays together with her children. So Martell and Arionne in the house together celebrating Christmas with her kids, Thanksgiving with the kids, and it's like this one big happy Frankenstein family that they've created. Even though Melody does not want Martell back, anybody would feel some kind of way about that. It is not because she wants him back. It's because this person, my enemy, my ex-husband's mistress, has some sort of influence on my children's development. And this is the reason why the universe is going to reward Melody for her maturity and her grace. And the reward will have nothing to do with whatever happens between Arionne and Martell. That's out of her hands. Her reward is the peace and the freedom of not having to deal with an abusive narcissist like Martell and his barnacle baby mother. A man like Martell cannot live in peace. He needs constant conflict, arguing, abuse, and deception to regulate his emotion and to manage his insecurities. People need to understand the magnitude, and I think they do now, but I think people need to understand the magnitude of the abuse that Melody had to endure if she was willing to walk away from everything she worked so hard for. Even if it meant a scraggly vulture like Arionne was going to benefit from her relinquishing her identity, her resources, her marriage, her social status, and what she valued the most, which is a very karmic lesson for all Scorpios. Once Scorpios do this, they can elevate to ego or phoenix status. Scorpios like Sierra can become shining examples of the power of metamorphosis. This is where pain is transmuted into power, and Melody had already started this process before she even divorced Martell. Now Pluto is transiting in Aquarius, forming a square to her Venus and her Sun. She's already dealing with the negative aspects of this transit. Martell's obsession, Melody losing her nuclear family to an energy vampire. She's been through a lot. But throughout all of this, the lesson that Melody has learned is to release for peace. She's learned to detach from the ego attachments that we develop when we enter relationships with people. This is possessiveness and entitlement and expectations and anger and unforgiveness. Melody has had to deal with all these negative emotions as a result of this very nasty and very unfair situation. But as with everyone else, pain is purification. And once the pain is completely gone, you know you've healed. And yes, this sucks for now. This would be a very difficult situation for anyone to go through. Having your children play house with your ex-husband and his mistress, who broke up his family, Like, if Martell had any heart for Melody, if he had a heart at all, he would leave her alone. He would stop reaching out to Melody as if he's really remorseful about what happened. Martell only contacts Melody when he needs an emotional band-aid to avoid dealing with his own pathological loneliness and insecurity. He did the same thing when they were married. When Melody would trigger him for whatever reason, he'd call Arionne for comfort. And now when Arionne triggers Martell, he reaches out to Melody for comfort. When you're dealing with narcissists, the dream or the fantasy is better than the reality. Martell uses the fantasy of reconciling with Melody to lift his spirits and to inspire him and motivate him. He can tolerate Arionne more if he believes Melody will give him another chance. But like I said earlier, it is horrible that the woman who wished nothing but pain and sorrow on Melody's life is now an influence on her children's life and their development. And honestly, that level of betrayal is unforgivable. But Melody has to forgive to break the soul tie between her, Martell, and Arionne. Now, I'm going to say this, and I didn't mention this before because I didn't want other people being irresponsible with this information, but Melody, Martell, and Arionne have played out this dynamic in previous lifetimes. And unfortunately, in the previous lifetime, someone did die due to betrayal from a lover who couldn't let go of a situation involving abuse and betrayal. In this lifetime, Melody can break the karmic soul tie with Martell and Arionne by emotionally detaching herself from everything involving both of them. But the frequency of this situation is very heavy and dense, so Melody has to radically change her perspective about love and relationships to vibrate higher so that she doesn't have to go through this again. And based on Melody's natal chart, she's experienced this dynamic over several lifetimes. Martell and Arionne will reincarnate together again, regardless. But Melody in this lifetime has the power and the opportunity to completely sever this energetic connection, but she has to stay light and free, no matter how much Arionne and Martell try to suck on her energy to sustain their relationship. If Melody makes a clean break, she'll be blessed to not have to do this again with both of them. In her next life, instead of living like a Scorpio with all this turmoil and drama, she can live like a Taurus, secure, comfortable, prosperous, at peace, and living in luxury, not swirling around this energetic toilet bowl with two low vibrational individuals who are so spiritually barren that they need to feed off of the toxicity of the situation to validate their existence. Now, as I stated before, Martell is still furious with Melody because she used the camera to take his power away. He no longer has the ability to use her to hide who he really is. But instead of facing his own reflection, Martell is pointing his mirror at other people, trying to project his shortcomings onto other people. Martell is so delusional that he expects people to believe that Melody is lying on him and defaming his character when this show has been documenting his abuse for 5 years now. Which brings me to my next point. Why I don't think that Martell should be fired from the show. Martell was arrested a few days after his birthday for sending harassing communications. I don't know if this is involving Melody, Arionne, or another woman, and people have been saying that Martell needs to be fired from the show since season 2. I honestly was surprised that Martell has not been reprimanded at this point for what he was doing to Melody on and off camera. So yes, I do agree that Martell should not be rewarded for his bad behavior. However, if it were not for the show, most people would not be aware of the extent of Martell's abuse against Melody. People on the outside looking in would just assume that Melody was a spoiled, bougie brat who was bitter that Martell got another woman pregnant, which is what I heard about Melody in seasons 1 and 2. This show has actually documented evidence of Martell's verbal, mental, and emotional abuse against Melody. He has repeatedly told bold-faced lies about Melody. And after he's proven wrong, he gets enraged and whines about Melody making him look bad. Martell really expects to be able to inflict abuse on people without any consequences or repercussions. And that is a bully with a God complex. Without this show surveilling Martell, Melody would more than likely be suffering in silence and in secret. And I think the cameras are reining in Martell's abusive behavior to an extent, even though he can't help himself. And that's why it's impossible for Melody to get closure with him. Because every time Melody reveals something new about what he's done, he loses his temper and then he tries to slither away to avoid being held accountable. And so nothing ever gets resolved. And this is why Martell and Melody keep arguing about the same thing repeatedly, because he will never take responsibility for anything he's done. So yeah, Martell needs to be surveilled and monitored for his own sake and for Melody's protection. Martell also needs this show to earn money to take care of his 5 children so that Melody doesn't have to do it by herself. Even though she can handle it, I mean, she's buying food for the kids already while they're at Arionne's house. Like, this is such a Saturn Scorpio situation. This is ridiculous. It's almost like Martell is determined to use Melody to make Arionne's life easier. And it has to be because of some sort of past life karmic debt that he has to pay her. There are Saturn South Node aspects between Arionne and Martell. This is a very binding energy of indebtedness. And so on a back end, Martell feels like he has to protect Arionne and to keep her safe or to pay her back for something he did in a past life. But this also means that at some point in this lifetime, he's going to feel stifled and break free from this relationship, which is why he's resisting formalizing this connection. He is just using Arionne for a warm bed, a warm mouth, and a stepmother for the 5 kids that he does not want to raise by himself. The pitiful thing is, Martell is not even man enough to admit that this situation with Melody and Arionne will be hard for anybody to go through. But he doesn't care because he's a bully. He really is a bully. And it's not a coincidence that he's now being bullied by the public the same way he bullied his wife for years. So again, Melody needs to go through this pain to sever the soul tie between she, Martell, and Arionne completely. God willing, she will not reincarnate anywhere near Martell's life path in the next lifetime. In her next lifetime, she will be married to someone who will give her the love, security, and protection that Martell has failed to do. Not to be messy, but I wonder what happened between Melody and Hill Harper. At some point, people were saying that they had a little flirty thing going on. I don't know. I'm not saying that he'd be a good boyfriend or whatever, but I think he would be a good transitional partner for Melody. He seems to adore her, which doesn't make him a perfect partner, but his sun is on her North Node, so he has the potential to help her elevate her frequency in this lifetime so that Martell and Arionne cannot drag her back into another incarnation cycle with them. My OG subscribers remember me talking about restorative penis and how good penis can actually elevate your vibration, just like bad penis can lower your vibration. Almost like a magical wand. I really hope that Melody right now has some restorative penis in her life that can elevate her vibration so that she does not have to deal with this situation energetically with Martell and Arionne, because it does suck, honestly. Speaking of penises, in part 1, Melody said that Martell never made her climax during sex, which is not surprising. Most women don't orgasm just with penetrative sex. There's a process, and apparently Martell is not aware of this process, nor did he care whether or not Melody was satisfied, which is why I said a long time ago, Melody stepped away from him because she wasn't getting her needs met in bed either. Martell never asked why Melody started to reject him sexually. Nobody wants to have sex with a man who is verbally, emotionally, and mentally abusive to them. But Martell is too selfish, ignorant, arrogant, and egotistical to understand that. I think Carlos also asked Martell if he enjoyed having sex with Melody, which is obvious, I think, because he got her pregnant 5 times. And I think this is also why he became enraged when she stopped giving in to him. Yet years ago, Martell kept saying that she was not satisfying him. And that's why I don't feel bad about Melody saying that Martell never satisfied him in bed, because he has been insinuating that she was bad in bed for years, dragging her name and her vagina through the mud. Martell guards his fragile ego like a pit bull, ready to attack anyone and everyone who challenges his supremacy and his dominance, because at the end of the day, he is a very insecure man. The idea of having sex with an abusive pit bull is horrifying to me, as it would be for most women. And that is why Melody ran away from Martell like Tina Turner. And speaking of beatdowns, Melody admitted that she beat Martell's ass, which in normal cases I don't condone, but Martell is a narcissist. And narcissists have a gift for bringing out the worst in people for control and to feel better about being dysfunctional and toxic. We have seen what Martell has said to Melody on camera. I shudder to think about how vicious and cruel he was to her in the privacy of their home. Imagine dogging out a woman who carried 4 of your babies and the family businesses on her back while covering your inadequacies and your failures. Who would want to have sex with someone like that? So if Melody beat on Martell out of rage, frustration, and despair, which is called reactionary abuse, I can understand it. It's not an ideal reaction, but Melody was not in an ideal situation. She was fighting for her sanity, which Martell was determined to take away from her. I don't think that Martell ever put his hands on Melody. And And I'm saying this based on the body language between them. Women who have been abused by their partners physically, they tend to flinch when their partner yells at them or moves towards them aggressively. And Melody has never flinched around Martell. So I can say confidently, I could be wrong, but I can say that I don't think that I believe Martell's ever put his hands on her, but he has done everything else in his power to destroy her. Like, you guys in the comment section can attest to this. Living with a narcissist is absolute hell. It's always a damn problem. There's always something wrong, something to complain about, something to criticize, a reason to justify disrespect, cheating, and abuse. It's really a nightmare that I wouldn't wish on anyone. And this is why I'm so happy that Melody changed her last name. This is one of the ways that she can break the soul tie between she and Martell, because she damn sure doesn't want to come back and do this again with him or anybody else. Speaking of nightmares, Maurice apologized to Kimmy for being insensitive about her libido situation. He shut it down quickly because he probably realized how bad it made him look in hindsight. Unlike Martell, Maurice did not hem and haw and make excuses and blame Kimmy and gaslight her and tell her that it was her fault that he responded the way he did. He apologized for everything without equivocation, and he didn't do it ostensibly. He seemed genuine and like he wanted to move on from the conversation quickly because what he said was indefensible. If this were Melody and Martell, the conversation would have turned into a huge argument and a shouting match, with Martell misrepresenting himself, lying on Melody, and then activating the veins in his neck for another pointless shouting match. Speaking of pointless shouting matches, Melody got into an argument with Stormi's mother, Ms. Betty. Stormi's mother enjoys being vicious to people, and I can tell by her eyebrows that she enjoys being nasty to people. But I don't fault her for defending her daughter, just like I wouldn't fault Miss Van for defending her daughter, Melody. However, Melody would not have to defend herself against claims of weaponizing her fan base against other cast members if the people on social media would stop instigating mess, as I've stated before. You don't have to attack the other cast members to support Melody, especially since they're all aspiring entrepreneurs who were trying to be productive members of society. Unfortunately, unhinged fans are a liability when you have to interact with the people that they're attacking. Beyonce does not have to deal with the Beehive. Rihanna doesn't have to deal with the Navy. Nicki Minaj does not have to deal with the Barbs. So their fans or their stands have nothing to do but attack each other. Melody actually works with the people that her fans are attacking. It is okay to give constructive criticism, but now people are trying to ruin reputable Black businesses that hire Black people. If the people on social media cared about Melody the way that they pretend to, they would stop making her life more complicated and consider how their actions and words are affecting her life and her relationships. I only started commenting about Love Marriage Huntsville because it did not sit right in my spirit hearing some content creators critique the show without actually analyzing what's going on and substantiating their analysis with facts and not feelings. I stopped commenting on Love Marriage Huntsville because people developed a bloodlust for relentlessly attacking the cast members and the content creators. And these people thought that they were acting in good faith, protecting Melody, but they were doing so with a barbed fence instead of love, compassion, and understanding. Now Melody has to deal with the fallout of people doing too much on social media to the point where it makes her look like a hater and a bully, which is not fair that Melody has to be held accountable for other people's actions. But as Oprah knows all too well, when you're a public figure and a brand, you have to safeguard your brand from irresponsible people who may mean well but are severely misguided. There is a fine line between constructive criticism and bullying. And if you can't differentiate the two, then you're not a critical thinker. And you're ultimately going to cause more problems for Melody than necessary. Going forward, Melody has to manage her social media accounts better or hire someone else to do it for her. Nevertheless, Miss Betty never liked Melody anyway. So I think at some point she goads Melody into losing her temper, which I'm sure made Miss Betty's angry eyebrows very happy. Speaking of unnecessary problems, Keke and Tisha got into an argument about Marcel's alleged infidelity. And like I asked weeks ago, why are people so invested in exposing Marcel for cheating? This will do nothing for anyone at this point. And like Melody said, Tisha wants concrete evidence. And even if she gets the concrete evidence, she still may forgive Marcel and not leave because she doesn't want to break up her nuclear family. She doesn't want to be a single mother. Tisha has already done a cost-benefit analysis of staying married to Marcel, okay? And she has determined that based on her analysis, it is in her best interest and in the best interest of her children that she stays married to him. The people in the audience demanding that she divorce Marcel will not have to deal with the fallout of her losing her nuclear family. Married people have to make very hard decisions. And honestly, I believe that if Martell were not as toxic as he is, Melody would also look the other way if he occasionally stepped out, slipped up once in a blue moon. But Martell pushed the limit and the boundaries back as far as they could go, and so he did everything possible to force Melody to divorce him. Tisha said both Keke and her husband cheated on each other, which is whatever. Like, who cares? But I'll say this. At the end of the day, there are two types of people. There are people who will accept almost anything to stay married, and people who have a low tolerance for abuse and disrespect. Some people have a higher tolerance for abuse and disrespect than others. Martell has been dragging Melody since the beginning of their marriage. The infidelity was not the straw that broke the camel's back. It was the years of incessant abuse and manipulation. You know, my biggest fear is being married to a demon, sharing the same close quarters with a demon, sharing the same bed as a demon. This demon knows my whereabouts at all times. My life is intertwined with this demon, so he can transfer his evil, dysfunctional energy onto me. So am I supposed to be miserable for the rest of my life because I married a miserable bastard? Absolutely not. Melody made the right choice. The thing is that people are acting like all infidelity is the same. On his worst day, Marcel is not as bad as Martell. So Tisha can tolerate his indiscretions a little easier because Marcel is not a bully or narcissist, in my opinion. He may be a chauvinist, but he's not a raging, lying lunatic like Martell. Like, real talk, Melody deserves all of the blessings that she gets because she was living in hell with Martell. So much so, she was willing to lose everything that she cared about, that she built, to get away from him. If Melody were married to someone with a better temperament and better character, she'd probably still be married. She needs to be with someone who is intelligent, patient, rational, objective, fair, confident, and compassionate. Martell's a big damn baby. He's immature, he's irrational, he's ignorant and entitled as hell. So it's not fair for people to expect Tisha to do what Melody did when she's not in the same situation. She seems to be content with what she has with Marcel, and that should be the end of the conversation. That does not mean that Marcel is perfect. It means that Marcel knows how to treat Tisha the way she needs to be treated to stay married to him, for better or worse. Marcel says something like he doesn't want Tisha to end up like Melody, a divorced woman. And that's an irresponsible statement to make because it sounds like he's blaming Melody for the divorce. What he should have said is, I don't want to treat my wife the way Martell treated Melody because he forced her to divorce him. And I don't want to hurt my wife so much that she is forced to walk away from the people, places, and things that she loves so much in order to preserve her dignity and her sanity. But he wasn't going to say this because he and Martell did their dirt together. And you know what Martell does when he gets exposed for doing dirt? He'll say, you did it with me too. Y'all did it with me. You're just as bad as I am. So you have no room to judge. And so Martell is low-key emotionally blackmailing the dudes on this cast because he knows their dirty secrets. And they know that if they hold Martell accountable for his shit, he's definitely going to retaliate by exposing their business. So yeah, Marcel was like, the Roger women are independent and single and they're not married. Let's not act like Melody and her mom and the women in her family are at fault for loving themselves enough to walk away from situations that do not honor them. They have the right to do that. Just like most men would leave their wives if they cheated one time, Melody and her mother have the right to leave a serial womanizer. Just because you're a man doesn't make your pain any more valuable than mine. And I want to say this. I don't think Melody would have an issue submitting to a man that she actually respected. No woman wants to submit to a bullying, narcissistic, mentally unstable, undisciplined, ignorant tyrant. And when you do submit to these types of men, you'll end up like Arionne, dependent on a man who needs you to help him take care of 4 children that he has with another woman who he wants to be with more than you. Lou and Tiffany have decided to take a hiatus from the show to deal with Tiffany's postpartum depression. I respect her decision. She seemed like she was going through some challenges while they were filming. And older mothers are more likely to suffer from PPD than younger ones. However, I am thinking about the financial situation. The Love Marriage Funds Field check was a cute little coin that they could use to supplement their income in case Lou or Tiffany needed time off of their real jobs to take care of their family. Hopefully she gets better soon and the situation does not drive a wedge between them. I did see the Fletchers on stage, Nell and her husband Chris. I do think that they are a better addition to the show than Tiffany and Lou. I love Miss Nell's sassiness. She's very intelligent. She's very aggressive, assertive, confident, beautiful. And Chris is a simmered down, toned down version, I think, of Marcel, not of Martell. I think he's a toned down version, a wiser, older, calmer, more reflective version of Marcel. And I love the dynamic. Chris seems to be confident enough in his masculinity that he doesn't have to prove himself by being chauvinistic. And that's where Marceau and Martell are, I think, currently, and even Maurice to an extent. So I do love them on the show. I hope that they become main characters. At some point, they get a little intro. Lou and Tiffany have bowed out gracefully, and I think it's a perfect opportunity for the Fletchers to capitalize on the situation. But all right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I look forward to reading your feedback. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will speak to you soon.